And now we get to welcome a very familiar face and a good friend of working people. Many of us know Jennifer Whiteside from her years as the chief spokesperson and lead negotiator at the Hospital Employees Union, including that crucial period during the pandemic when she worked so hard and so effectively to protect seniors and workers in nursing homes. And we remember, of course, her work leading BC's first campaign for a living wage. She took her advocacy for working people into electoral politics in 2020 and became my MLA in New Westminster. She served as the Minister of Education and Childcare and the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions. And this October, she was re-elected and has been appointed to be BC's new Minister of Labour, our minister, we like to call her. So please welcome our friend and MLA for New Westminster Coquitlam, Jennifer Whiteside.
Thank you, Suzanne, so much. And good afternoon, everyone. Look at all your beautiful faces. It is so amazing to be here. I want to take a moment to acknowledge with gratitude that we are on the territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. I have to say, it's been a long time since I've been on the floor of a Fed convention, whether that was as a CUPE activist. I see our CUPE friends over there. That's where I started. That's where I started. Or whether it was my time with the Hospital Employees Union as their Secretary Business Manager. Yay, HU. I can't tell you what a pleasure and an honor it is to join all of you here today in my first official engagement as BC's Minister of Labour. And I also want to acknowledge today that it is the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, which is an important struggle that the labour movement has also led in, and I am grateful for the work that you have all done in your communities and locals on that front. You know, I was pretty thrilled when Premier Eby asked me to take on this portfolio because, like all of you, I have spent most of my adult life fighting for workers' rights, for safety, for dignity. I've been a shop steward, a local president, a regional executive member. I've worked as a labor relations officer, a researcher, an organizer, a negotiator. I've been a community activist, a human rights activist, and I've advocated for workers like temporary foreign workers who don't and haven't had the benefit of a union. I've worked for unions and community organizations for many years on a whole broad range of health policy and labor relations issues, including as the chief spokesperson and lead negotiator for HEU during a time when we were rebuilding much of what had been lost over the years under the BC Liberal government. And I have to say, I come by it honestly. My mom was a BC GEU member. Where are our friends at the GEU? All right, GEU. She was a clerical worker at Woodlands, and then she worked later at the Forensic Psychiatric Commission. Her dad, my grandfather, had been a postie before the First World War. So it is all a bit been in my kind of in the ether for me. And it was, another good friend of ours and another good friend of Labour, Judy Darcy, who was the MLA for New Westminster, who really encouraged me to step up and take a run at elected office in 2020 to bring what I have learned from all of you over many years into government. And I mean, it's been this is a challenging time to be in government for sure, but I'm sure glad that I made that move and had the opportunity to make some changes in the Ministry of Education and our work with post-secondary, working with folks at BCTF. We brought in the first changes in a long time to the graduation requirements, such that there's now an Indigenous-focused content as a requirement for kids to graduate from high school. That's really important on reconciliation. And I'm so grateful for the work that teachers, that educational assistants do, that QP members who work in education, that everybody is doing to take care of kids these days, because it's tough for kids out there these days. And I learned just how tough when I was the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions. Again, a very challenging file, but with a lot of overlap with Labour, and I was so grateful to have the opportunity to work with many of you on that front. Now, as the Minister of Labour, which I'm still kind of tickled pink and just sort of pinching myself to believe that this is where I landed. I really intend to build on the progress that our government has made over the last 2 years, over the last 2 mandates, 7 years, 2 mandates, in this, what is an unprecedented 3rd mandate for our BC NDP government. Folks, this has never happened before, and we made it happen. You made it together. Together we made it happen. And central, so central to the work that we are doing is the strong relationships between our government and the partners in this room here today. And I really want to recognize Suzanne and Harminder for all that they have done, not only to support the Labour movement, but also to really advance the relationship between the BC Fed and the province. And that gratitude extends to members of your executive board, your executive council as well. But I do have to say that it is the work and the activism of rank-and-file members, the leaders on the ground, all of you, in the locals, in the community, in the Labour councils, that is fundamental to the strength of our bond and the success of our relationship. So thank you for everything that you do to stand up for fellow workers and to stand up for our communities. Now, I know I'm picking up the baton from my friend and predecessor, Harry Bains, and I'm really pleased that you're going to have a chance to reflect on Harry's legacy a little bit later this week. Throughout his career, Harry's been just a tireless advocate for workers, for unions, and I know that you'll agree that during our first 7 years with Harry as Minister of Labour, our government accomplished so much for and with working people. You know, when we formed government in 2017, we had one of the lowest minimum wages in the country. And one of the first things that we did was to raise the minimum wage. We've raised it every year since then, and we have ensured that the minimum wage will keep up with inflation in the years to come. We amended the Employment Standards Act to establish that floor of 5 paid sick days as leave for all workers, the most of any province or territory. I mean, we brought in significant changes to the Labour Relations Code, like card check. And better protection for workers who are subject to contract flipping. After years of critical, important worker safety issues being ignored by the former government, we worked with you to establish training and licensing requirements for workers and companies handling asbestos. And we recognized the need for increased safety and training on construction sites and in crane operation. And we rolled back some of the most punitive anti-worker legislation when we repealed Bill 29 in the health sector and brought work that had been privatized back into the health system and repatriated healthcare workers to the healthcare team. You know, since 2017, we've made it easier for workers who have been injured on the job or who have been made ill by the work that they do to access the healthcare they need. We've added several kinds of cancer to the list of diseases that firefighters are at increased risk from, so they too get the care and support that they need quickly. We've worked to improve access to mental health care, and we've worked with you to address the toll of the toxic drug crisis on workers. There is no question there is more to do to ensure that workers have the protections and the pathways to care and support they need when it comes to their physical and mental health. You know, this progress we've been able to make together is due to the tireless work of the labor movement. It's not government. I thought those words were very apt from your former speaker. We have to work together to get those things done. And you worked hard to push on all of these issues. These really are your victories. You should be proud of the work that you have done to make this progress happen. I do want to add just one more accomplishment from the labor file from the last 7 years. The last one was announced just before the election, which I think is a real win for human dignity, and that is flush toilets in the construction sector. Can you imagine how long? Can you imagine? Going forward, any construction site with more than 25 workers needs to have flush toilets on site, and not just for management. Again, it was the labor movement that got that done. You got that done. And I want to say, too, that beyond all of these and the many more workplace issues that are so critical, everything that we do in government across all of the different ministries to improve accessibility and affordability of housing, to strengthen access to public health care, to make life more affordable for people, is about ensuring that you and your families and the people in your communities can have a good life with dignity and security. And we are not done, not by a long shot. And this is not meant to be a victory lap by any means, but it is a challenge to us for the future. How do we work together to make life better for working people? Let's work together to make workplaces safer. Let's make working conditions better, because our government is a labor government. It is your government. For 16 long years, the people of British Columbia had to endure a government that only listened to the bosses. And of course, we will always take time to hear what employers and stakeholders have to say. But unlike the government of John Rustad, our government listens to workers. And we make sure that working people and their communities and those needs are at the front and the center of everything that we do. You know, the labor movement has been at the forefront of the struggle for workplace rights and, of course, for equity for people who experience discrimination. And I want to say that it's not only in an economic sense that unions are the rising tide that lifts all boats. But the fight for the right of people to be who they are in the workplace and in their community, to be treated with dignity, the fight for equity and treatment and for human rights, these are values that we share. And these are values that we will fight for. Moving forward, one of my areas of concern will be to continue to focus on workers being treated fairly to ensure they're all covered by our employment standards, regardless of where they come from or what jobs they do. In the context of a changing economy, we will work together to ensure security and opportunity for working people. We'll continue to work on improving health and well-being and safety at work for workers. And as our government begins a new term with new challenges, for sure we'll reflect on the important things about how we work together and the positive the progress that we've made. But but I know that there's a lot more to do. And so I really look forward to meeting with many of you to hear about the issues that are top of your mind for you, for your membership, so that we can continue to build the strong relationships that are going to make progress for us and to continue to work together for the benefit of British Columbia. And finally, friends, I want to say that these are challenging times. These are very challenging times. And I think never has been more important that we all stick together. And I have always taken to heart the words from J.S. Wordsworth, that what we desire for ourselves, we wish for all. And to this end, may we take our share in the world's work and in the world's struggles. And it is my deepest honor to be in that struggle with you. Thank you. Have a great convention. And I'm going to be around, so let's talk.